Hello, 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 and welcome to the next episode of the Shane Walsh podcast. So, today's episode is something I speak to an awful lot of people about in relation to the weighing scales and why it's imperative, and it is imperative that until you become less reactive to the weighing scales, weight loss will always be harder. It will always be a battle. And I think it's something that affects every single person I work with in fat loss at some stage, especially women, people, men, whoever it may be, has been yo-yo dieting for years. And it's this when I'm working with someone until that person can learn how to become less reactive, weight loss will always be that that unnecessarily bit harder for them. And I know that might sound counterintuitive. We're told to weigh ourselves, track our progress, stay accountable, but there's massive differences between observing data and being controlled by it. And that is a massive difference. And that difference is between someone who loses fat consistently and someone who, when the weighing scales up, completely stops and starts over. That's the biggest difference. And it's not an ability issue. It's a reactive piece, learning how to become less reactive to it. So the problem itself isn't you, right? The problem is scale reactivity. Okay. So when we're talking about what scale reactivity looks like in progress or practice, you step on the scale on a Monday, you're down a pound, you feel amazing, you're motivated, you stick to your plan perfectly, life is good. Tuesday morning, you step on the scale, you're up 2 pounds, immediately your mood crashes. You think, what the fuck is the point in doing this? And you start questioning everything. And maybe you treat yourself like because you were good yesterday, it didn't matter anyway. Or maybe you slash your calories even lower and restrict even further because clearly what you're trying to do isn't working. And this will sound familiar to an awful lot of you. And the whole point of what I'm trying to say here is this isn't a new practice, what people do. Some people have done this for years and years and years, not from a lack of accountability, not from a lack of effort, not from a lack of discipline, not from a lack of anything other than it's understanding why we do it and how to reduce it happening. Because the scale reactivity piece, it's costing you the changes that you're ultimately looking for. Now, there's the other side of it is when some people, a perfect example would be when someone comes back from holidays and they weigh in afterwards, say, well, I got away with this. So they treat themselves to more food because they got away with it. Or if the scales goes up, they'll go into restriction mode. That's the two sides to it. Why does this scale reactivity make things harder? Because when you're reactive to the weighing scales, you're not making decisions based on the actual plan that works. You're making emotional decisions based on daily fluctuations that are completely normal and often have nothing to do with fat loss. Your weight can fluctuate 2 to 5 pounds in a single day based on sodium, which is salt, carb intake, which is water storage, through a little bit more. If you consume 1 gram of carbs, it attributes 3 to 4 grams of water. That doesn't mean carbs are bad. It can add up a little bit. There could be the stress response that if you are stressed, your reaction to it might be to overeat, so that can cause that. The menstrual cycle can also be a factor that there will be times of the month that you may weigh less, may weigh more due to the different hormonal fluctuations, water retention, digestion, hormones, load of different factors. How much you've slept, when you last went to the bathroom, etc. And none of these things mean that you gained fat. And even if you went out for a meal with a friend and the scales went up, it doesn't mean you've gained fat. It takes an awful lot more for that to happen. And that's a consistent piece of work that will make the scales. But the scales can't also measure body fat. It cannot measure your self-worth. It cannot measure all of your progress. But if you're reactive, you'll treat these things like you did gain fat. And what happens next is you never stay consistent long enough to actually see the changes or the results you're looking for. You're constantly course correcting based on noise, You are exhausting yourself emotionally, and you're reinforcing this story that your body is unpredictable, your metabolism is broken, you're the issue, or that you don't deserve these changes. We're just responding to the wrong data. So, what are you actually trying to control? And this is the question I really, really want you to sit with. What are you actually trying to control when you step on the scales? Because for most people, it's not about the number, it's what that number means. A lower number means for an awful lot of people, because of clubs, because of life, because of what you've been brought up around, etc., it means I'm good. I'm in control. I'm making progress. I'm worthy. A higher number often means I failed. I'm out of control. Nothing works for me. I'm not good enough. Do you see that narrative that's been created? You're not weighing yourself to collect data. You're weighing yourself to determine your value, your worth, your capability as a person. And no wonder it makes you reactive. That's an enormous amount of pressure to put on a number that changes constantly. From even me drinking a glass of water, the scales will go up. But that has nothing to do with me as a person for drinking that water, for that scales going up. So, what are you really using the weighing scales for if you're not using it for data? Are you seeking validation? Another tough question to ask yourself, are you seeking validation from the weighing scales? Like, if the scale going down is the only thing that makes you feel like you're succeeding, then yes, that's what you're doing. And I get it. We've been preconditioned to think the scales is the ultimate measure of progress, but it's not. It's one data point among loads. And when you make it the only thing that matters, you give it way too much power over your choices, your mood, your consistency. Real progress looks like sticking to things when the scales doesn't move. Understanding that fat loss isn't linear. The scales cannot measure fat loss. It can only measure the gravity. Trusting the process. We over weeks, not months. Sorry, over weeks and months, not just days and hours. Your clothes fitting different, your measurements going down. Are you able to reset after a meal out? Take a viewpoint and zoom out across the month. If you look at your week one of your cycle in March to week one of your cycle in April, has the data changed on your measurements and your weight? If it has, great. But if you're comparing week one of your cycle in March to week one of your cycle or week four of your cycle the next month, that's like comparing chalk and cheese. The scales, the measurements may be different. So zoom out across a month and say, right, is the scales going down? But if you're only looking for the scales as this viewpoint, and you'll miss that and you will quit straight away because you've told yourself already when you jump on the scales and told yourself consciously or subconsciously through no fault of your own that if this number does not go down by the number I want it to, I am going to quit. So if you go in constantly guessing the weighing scales, you will be constantly disappointed. That's the reality. So a real client example, right? I'm going to tell you about a client called Sarah. I've changed her name for this. Sarah came to me from years of yo-yo dieting. She'd lose 10 pounds, gain it back, lose 15, gain it back. The cycle was exhausting. And when we started together, I quickly saw why. It wasn't ability. She was weighing herself multiple times per day, morning, lunch, bedtime. And every single weigh in affects her mood and her actual choices. Up half a pound at lunch, she'd skip dinner. Down a pound in the morning, she'd earn a treat later. Up 2 pounds after the weekend, she'd slash her calories to 1200 calories and do loads of cardio. Completely reactive. The scales will go up if you eat. If you think of your stomach like a plastic bag, it's empty. But when you put food into it, it will be more full. So the scale, you are going to weigh that bit more. But this was a self-sabotage piece, and that was destroying her progress. So here's what we actually did. We reduced our weigh-ins. And this freaks people out. Well, how do I know I'm making progress if I'm not weighing in? Are you being more consistent? Are your measurements going down? Are you not pressing the focus button? There's just a few. Because you're not using it for data, you're using it for control. And we can all have this. I know I had this. We can have this ideology of, well, if my weight is down or I'm weighing a certain number, it's going to sort all my problems out. But the problems are still going to exist. You're still going to have the stress with the kids, the life, the marriage, the workload, or whatever it might be. So, step two, we reframe what the scale actually measures. It's not measuring worth or progress, it's giving you data, just like your bank balance is giving you data. Step three, we focus on process goals instead of outcome goals. Instead of lose 2 pounds this week, we said, can we have three main meals, two or three snacks, 5 or 6 days out of the week? And that's it. That was a use of tick, 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 tick each day that we've done that. And it was a great viewpoint in saying, you know what, this is creating calm, making her feel in control. And step four was we practiced noticing her reaction without acting on it. When the number went up, instead of changing everything, we'd ask, what else could explain this? What does the trend over time look like? Or is it just that? Within 2 months, Sarah was different. The scales still fluctuated because she's human, didn't control her anymore. She'd see it go up and say, okay, it is what it is. I've done everything I possibly could. I was adherent 80% of the time, enjoyed a meal out with my kids, and felt great. And she realized that she was proud of being able to stick to her realistic plan for the week. She created more control, felt calmer, was less reactive. And do you know what happened? Because she wasn't trying to control everything, she lost 10 pounds. She lost 18 pounds in 12 weeks, should I say, more than she ever had before. Not because the plan was different, because she was more consistent with her meals. She was having nights out. She was less reactive to the scales and wasn't punishing herself if the scales went up. So how do we actually become less reactive to the weighing scales? We need to look at it. So how do you actually do this? One, we need to change our relationship with the scales. The scale is a tool, not a judge. It gives you information, not validation. So we need to start practicing that mindset shift where you step on the scale, say out loud, this is just data. Two, weigh yourself less frequently. Often when people are weighing themselves in, they're looking for it as a control mechanism more than anything else. They're not using it for data. But we're not in control if it is taking up every single bandwidth of our brain. Try once a week. For some, that will work. Some people need to step away from it completely, and some people need to step on that a little bit more in order to see the data. But if someone's completely reactive after a night out to the weighing scales, I would say stepping away from the weighing scales until we can create that habit and that pattern of getting back into routine quicker than they have previously. So if you have a night out and you step on the scales and that's what triggers your fuck up button, well then could it be a remove the trigger and see how you go and concentrate on what you can control, which is getting back into your routine, nourishing yourself versus punishing yourself. Track your trends. Zoom out and look at your data across the factor of a month, 6 months. Four, focus on what you can control. Can you control whether you're nourishing yourself? Can you control that you're getting vegetables with most meals? Can you control that you're managing your stress? Number five, find other measures of progress, non-scale victories, how your clothes are fitting, how your energy is, cholesterol going down, energy levels, confidence with your partner, sleep quality, your relationship with food. All of these matter. So when people say, well, how will I know I'm making progress? These are measures of progress. But these are the ones that you haven't been taught and haven't used before. But these paint the whole picture, not the scales. The scale is only one piece of that puzzle. We need to practice the pause. When you see a number you don't like, pause before you react. Think of it this way. If you're walking across the road or about to cross the road, you don't run across out looking left and right. You pause to look left and right. Otherwise you get hit by a car. So ask yourself, am I guessing this? Am I stepping on with this to be disappointed? What else could explain this little bit of a jump up in the weighing scales? Am I making the next decision based on an emotion? Or what does the person that I want to become act like? The real truth is what fat loss is essentially doing one thing over and over again over a consistent period. Just like weight gain is doing one thing over and over again. But that's also what yo-yo dieting is. It's doing the same thing over and over again. They're just different things that will bring you to where you want to go. But to be consistent, we need to be less emotionally reactive to every fluctuation. You don't burn your house down when it starts raining outside. We don't slash all our tires when we've had one tire get flat. The people who I've seen over doing this for 8 years are the ones who succeed long term are the ones who learn to detach their self-worth from the number. They learn to trust the process. They learn to zoom out and look at trends. That's the skill. So if this episode resonated with you at all, if you recognize yourself what I've described, I want you to invite you to the Female Fat Loss program starting on the January 12th. It's an 8-week program specifically designed for women who are tired of the yo-yo dieting cycle. Women who want to lose fat in a sustainable way that will focus on an approach that fits you, where you're at, tailored nutrition guidance, 8 check-ins with me, one-to-one check-ins, a one-to-one call with myself, training programs tailored to you for the gym or to home, where you can do your own thing. Now, the Black Friday offer took an awful lot of the spaces, which I'm forever grateful for. But for 8 weeks of coaching, the price is normally €149, but you are invited to for €99. If you are interested in this, pop me a DM or click on the link in the show notes and you can reserve your spot on the priority list. On this, everything will go on sale on the 2nd of January. So we start on January 12th. Spaces are limited because I cap the amount of numbers of people that I work with on a daily basis. I will not give you a meal plan because meal plans work until they don't. Meal plans will work until you go out for a meal with your friends, and then guess what? It doesn't work. Remember, the scale is just a tool. It doesn't define you. So if you're interested in working with me in the Female Fat Loss program starting on January 12th, let us know. And if this episode has helped you in any way, don't be afraid to share it with a friend. But thank you so much for listening.